The Mafia boss told his fat financial assistant not to cancel Christmas, and by the next morning, Valentina Moretti understood that kindness could become a cage if the wrong people learned how to lock it. Dante Bellarosa said it softly, without raising his voice, without touching her hand, without promising revenge or rescue or anything dramatic enough to make her feel foolish for needing courage. He only looked across his dark office at the woman who had spent her whole life being useful to people who called that love, and said, "Don't cancel the trip." And somehow, those 4 words felt more dangerous than anything else he could have offered her. Before that morning, Valentina had believed she was good at hiding disappointment. She had practiced for years. She had smiled when relatives joked that she was built for comfort, then asked her to stand in the kitchen for 6 hours. She had laughed when her cousins said she was lucky she did not have a husband to answer to, then handed her their babies like her empty arms were public property. She had swallowed the little cuts because each one arrived dressed as family. A mother's sigh, a father's practical comment, a sister's bright, careless laugh. None of it looked cruel enough from the outside. That was the trick. People who used you softly were harder to accuse. At work, no one spoke to Valentina that way. Not in Dante Bellarosa's office. Not if they wanted to keep their voice steady. She was his private financial assistant, which meant she knew where his legal businesses hid their mistakes, where his illegal ones pretended not to exist, and which men smiled too widely when the numbers stopped making sense. Dante was one of the most feared men in the city, but fear around him was usually quiet. Men lowered their tone when he entered a room. Lawyers sat straighter. Bankers forgot the clever little jokes they had planned. Dante did not need to shout. He had the stillness of a locked door and the reputation of a man who always knew what stood behind it. Valentina had worked for him for almost 3 years. In that time, he had never once called her sweetheart. He had never patted her shoulder in that fake fatherly way older men used when they wanted to sound kind while ignoring what she had said. He had never asked if she was sure she could handle a late meeting because women got tired. He gave her hard work, clear deadlines, dangerous information, and the rarest gift she had ever received from a powerful person. He trusted her to know what she was doing. That was why she had been so careful with her Christmas trip. She had planned it in the quiet way people plan things they are afraid someone will take from them. She bought the ticket late at night in her apartment with a blanket around her shoulders and snow pressing against the window glass. Prague in winter had looked impossible on her laptop screen. Golden lights, red roofs, church towers rising through mist, little wooden market stalls with ornaments hanging like tiny moons. She and her old friend Marina had talked about going for years, back when they were both younger, and still believed adulthood would give them more freedom instead of more people to disappoint. Marina had sent the message in October, "Come with me this Christmas, no family guilt, no folding chairs, no cooking for people who don't say thank you, just us, hot chocolate, old streets, and whatever kind of joy we can afford." Valentina had stared at the message for a long time before answering. She imagined her mother's face, her father's silence, Bianca's laugh. Then she imagined herself standing in a snowy square where no one expected her to carry a tray, watch a child, find missing wrapping paper, clean someone else's kitchen, or sleep in a room that smelled like detergent because all the real bedrooms were for people with spouses. She typed yes before fear could talk her out of it. After that, she moved like a woman protecting a small flame in heavy wind. She checked Dante's December schedule twice, then a third time. She finished reports early. She moved an internal audit forward by 3 days. She arranged coverage for the 2 urgent accounts that might need attention while she was gone. She did not announce the trip in the family chat. She did not give anyone a chance to say she was being dramatic, selfish, difficult, or too old to run around Europe like a college girl. She simply prepared. Then, 1 week before Christmas, she went to her parents' house for Sunday dinner and heard her name from the hallway. The Moretti house was already dressed for the holiday. Red ribbon twisted around the stair rail. Gold angels stood on the entry table. A plastic wreath blinked green and white above the kitchen door. The whole place smelled like garlic, pine candles, and the kind of stress her mother called tradition. Valentina had arrived with a bakery box because showing up empty-handed was treated like a crime in her family, even though showing up with herself had never seemed to count as enough. She paused near the dining room because Bianca was speaking. Valentina can take the kids after dinner. That solves Christmas Eve. Valentina's hand tightened around the bakery box. Her mother, Rosaria, made a pleased sound. Good. Then the adults can actually enjoy dessert. And Christmas morning? Her father asked. She can handle breakfast, Bianca said. The kids wake up early anyway. She's used to being up before everyone. Dante works her like a machine. Valentina stood very still. Her father gave a short laugh. That man pays her enough. She can survive pouring cereal. It won't just be cereal, Rosaria said. I need her to make the pancakes. Your cousins expect them. And she can start the sauce after. If she sleeps downstairs, she'll hear the children before they come up. Downstairs. Valentina looked toward the basement door. It led to the laundry room, where her mother kept extra paper towels, old coats, the broken treadmill, and the air mattress with the slow leak. Bianca laughed. Perfect. Put her in the laundry room. The kids can sleep in the den, and she'll be right there if Nico has nightmares. Did anyone ask her? Another voice said. That was Aunt Lucia, older, sharper, not kind exactly, but not blind either. There was a pause. Then Rosaria sighed as if the question itself had poor manners. Ask her? Lucia, please. She always helps. Valentina stared at the red ribbon on the banister until it blurred. She has plans, Lucia said. I thought she mentioned something about traveling. Bianca made a little sound, soft and dismissive. That Prague thing? She won't really go. Rosaria clicked her tongue. A woman with no husband does not need to run away for Christmas. She gets these ideas from the internet. She bought a ticket, Lucia said. Tickets can be cancelled, Emilio answered. Family cannot. The words landed in Valentina's chest with the dull weight of something old. Family cannot. That was what they always said when what they meant was Valentina should. Valentina should make room. Valentina should understand. Valentina should take the smallest plate, the worst bed, the hardest job, the joke about her weight, the reminder that she was almost 30, and still no man had chosen her in a way the family could respect. Bianca's voice brightened again. Honestly, she should be happy to feel useful. What is she going to do in Prague? Walk around cold and eat bread? At least here she'll be needed. Needed. That word had followed Valentina her whole life, but it had never felt like love. It felt like hands reaching before they checked whether she was tired. Rosaria continued speaking, and her voice had the calm confidence of a woman arranging furniture, not another human being's holiday. She can arrive early on Christmas Eve. She'll help me finish the kitchen, then watch the children during dinner. After that, the adults can go to the club for the private party. Bianca, you and Marco deserve a night out. Your father already paid the deposit. I cancelled the sitter, Bianca said. No point wasting money when Valentina is available. Available. Valentina almost laughed, not because it was funny, because sometimes pain entered the body so cleanly that laughter seemed like the only way to keep it from becoming a sound someone could hear. She stepped back from the dining room. The bakery box felt heavy in her hands. Inside were the almond cookies her mother liked, the expensive kind with soft centers. Valentina had stopped on the way because she knew Rosaria would say something if she did not. Now she set the box quietly on the entry table beside one of the blinking angels. Then she left. No one called after her. No one knew she had arrived. Outside, the cold hit her face. It was not snowing yet, but the air had that silver stillness that came before it. Valentina walked to her car without hurrying. She placed both hands on the steering wheel and sat in the dark driveway while warm yellow light filled the windows of the house behind her. Inside, they were probably still talking, still planning, still dividing her time among themselves like extra chairs. Her phone buzzed before she started the engine. Her mother had sent a message to the family group chat. Christmas schedule coming soon. Everyone please be flexible this year. We all help because that is what family does. Valentina looked at the message until the letters became meaningless. Then she drove home. The next morning, she wore her navy dress, the one with clean lines and sleeves that did not pinch her arms. She pinned her dark hair low and applied lipstick carefully, because if her mouth looked steady, maybe the rest of her would follow. She reached Bellarosa Holdings before most of the office lights had turned on. The lobby security guards nodded to her with more respect than her cousins had ever used. The elevator carried her to the private floor in a silence so polished it made her ears ring. Dante's office door was already open. He sat at his desk with a black coffee untouched near his right hand, and 3 folders arranged in front of him. Morning light cut across his face, turning one side gold and leaving the other in shadow. He did not look up immediately, but Valentina knew the exact moment he noticed something was wrong. His pen stopped moving. "You are early," he said. "So are you." "That is normal for me." "It is normal for me too." "No." He looked up then. "You are usually early with purpose. Today you are early because you did not sleep." Valentina opened her mouth with the answer she used for everyone else. "I'm fine. Long weekend, just tired, nothing serious." But Dante Bellarosa had built an empire on hearing the difference between words and truth. Lying to him felt like bringing a paper umbrella into a storm and calling it shelter. "I slept," she said. His eyes stayed on her face. "Badly." She placed a folder on his desk. "The Vienna transfer papers are corrected. I also moved the year-end tax review to Thursday, so it will not interfere with my leave." "I know. You sent the updated timeline Friday." "Right." He leaned back. "Valentina." The sound of her name in his voice did something unfair to her. Not soft, not tender, just exact. As if she was not a spare person in the room. As if the shape of her life was worth naming properly. She looked down at the folder. "My family found out about the trip." Dante said nothing. That was one of the things she had learned about him. Most men filled silence because they were afraid someone else might use it. Dante let silence do its work. "They did not really find out," she corrected. "I think I mentioned it once. Maybe to my aunt, maybe at dinner last month. I thought no one was listening. It turns out they were listening enough to dismiss it." His expression did not change, but the room felt colder. "Dismiss it," he repeated. Valentina took a breath. "They planned Christmas around me, without asking. Cooking, cleaning, childcare, overnight duty. My sister cancelled the sitter because she assumed I would watch her children. My parents were going to put me in the laundry room on an air mattress, so I could be close if the kids woke up." Dante's fingers rested lightly on the arm of his chair. "And your trip? They said I could cancel, or should cancel, or would cancel. I am not sure which version made them feel least guilty." A faint muscle moved in his jaw. Valentina laughed once, small and embarrassed. "I know it sounds silly. It is not like anything terrible happened. No one threatened me. No one screamed. They just assumed. That is not small." She looked at him. He stood and walked toward the window. The city stretched behind him, pale and busy and careless. "A request leaves room for no," he said. "An assumption steals the answer before you are allowed to give it." Valentina felt her throat tighten. "They are my family." "Yes. They will say I ruined Christmas." "Did you agree to run it?" "No." "Did they ask you?" "No." "Then you cannot ruin a job you never accepted." The words were so simple that they should not have shaken her, but they did. They moved through her like someone opening a window in a room she had forgotten was full of smoke. I thought you would say family comes first, she said quietly. Dante turned from the window. People who say that often mean one person should come last. She stared at him. He came back to the desk, but did not sit. You earned your leave. Your work is covered. Your ticket is purchased. Your time belongs to you. My mother will cry. She may. My father will be furious. He may. Bianca will tell everyone I am selfish. She almost certainly will. Valentina blinked. That is not comforting. It is honest. A reluctant smile pulled at her mouth, then faded. Dante's voice lowered. Do not cancel the trip. The office became very quiet. Valentina looked at him, waiting for the rest, waiting for the strategy, the threat, the offer to handle things, the expensive solution that would somehow leave her feeling smaller. But Dante only watched her with that cold patience people mistook for cruelty, until they learned he used it most when something mattered. What do I say to them? She asked. Nothing yet. Nothing. You already said nothing when they made the plan. Let them continue speaking. Save every message, every schedule, every demand. Not because you need evidence to justify leaving, because people who depend on your silence often become honest when they believe you will keep it. A soft sense of fear moved over her skin. That sounds like something you would say before destroying someone. It is something I say before letting someone destroy their own lie. Valentina looked down at her hands. They were steady now. She had not noticed when they stopped shaking. What if they need me? She whispered. Dante's expression changed, barely. They need childcare. They need labor. They need convenience. Those are not the same as needing you. That hurt more than she expected. Not because it was cruel, because it was true. By lunch, the family chat began filling with messages. Rosaria sent the first version of the schedule with red and green heart emojis. She wrote as if everything had already been discussed, as if Christmas was a train, and Valentina had simply forgotten she was assigned to shovel coal. Valentina's name appeared again and again. Valentina arrives early. Valentina helps with children during dinner. Valentina handles dishes while adults exchange gifts. Valentina sleeps downstairs with kids nearby. Valentina starts breakfast. Valentina keeps little ones occupied before church. Valentina helps tidy before club party. Bianca added a smiling photo of her youngest daughter wearing reindeer antlers. Auntie Val will make it magical. Valentina sat at her desk with her phone face down beside the keyboard. She did not open the chat for several minutes. She finished a payroll approval. She corrected a decimal in a shipping account. She answered an email from legal. She behaved like the kind of woman who knew how to keep breathing while something inside her quietly tore. Then she opened the chat and saved everything. At 3 in the afternoon, Bianca wrote that she was so relieved she had cancelled the sitter before the holiday rates got crazy. Emilio replied that this was why families should not waste money acting fancy. Rosaria sent a message telling Valentina to bring comfortable shoes because she would be running around with the kids most of the night. Valentina typed a reply. I am not available. She looked at the words until they scared her. Then she deleted them. Not because she had changed her mind, because Dante was right. They had built an entire holiday on a version of her that did not resist. Let them keep building. Let them place one more chair on a floor they had not checked. That evening, Dante stopped by her desk on his way to a meeting with 2 men who had arrived smiling and were now leaving pale. Any changes? He asked. Valentina glanced at her phone. Apparently, I am also in charge of keeping the children quiet during my father's toast. Dante's mouth did not smile, but something close passed through his eyes. A serious appointment. I should add it to my resume. You should add the hours to an invoice. She almost laughed. It came out softer than expected. He looked at her for another second. You are not cruel for refusing to be convenient. The words stayed with her after he left. That night, Valentina went home and opened her suitcase. For a long time, she only stood beside it. The empty suitcase looked bold on her bed, too bold, like an accusation, like hope had taken physical form and was now asking if she was brave enough to fill it. Her apartment was small but warm. A lamp glowed beside the sofa. A stack of financial journals sat on the coffee table. On the kitchen counter, a bowl of oranges gave off a clean, bright smell. Valentina had bought them because she liked the color, then felt silly for spending money on fruit that looked cheerful. Now she took one from the bowl and placed it in the suitcase for no reason, except that she wanted to begin with something alive. Then she packed. A black dress, thick socks, a cream sweater, gloves, her passport, a paperback she had been saving, a red scarf Marina had mailed her years ago after a breakup that never became a family story, because no one had considered Valentina's heartbreak important enough to repeat. She packed the printed reservation for the hotel in Prague and the ticket she had checked so many times that the confirmation number had become familiar as a prayer. When she reached for her winter coat, she paused. It was old, too tight at the arms. Serviceable, her mother would say. Good enough, her father would say. Better than wasting money on something flattering when she should be saving for the future, Bianca would say, as if Valentina's body did not deserve beauty until someone else approved its shape. Valentina folded the coat anyway. Then she removed it from the suitcase. The next day after work, she went to a department store where the windows glowed with holiday displays and women thinner than her smiled from posters in wool coats that looked effortless because no one had ever made them feel like fabric was a privilege. Valentina almost left twice. Once when the saleswoman looked at her too quickly and said the extended sizes were on the back wall. Once when she tried on a gray coat that pulled across her hips and felt that old shame rise like heat in her face. Then she found the green one. Deep green. Heavy, soft, with a wide belt and a hood trimmed in dark faux fur. It fit her shoulders. It closed without a fight. It made her look not smaller, not hidden, not corrected, but present. Valentina stood in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. She bought it before she could ask permission from ghosts. Christmas Eve morning arrived cold and pale. Her family expected her by 8. At 6, Valentina was already awake. She showered, dressed in black leggings and a soft sweater, tied her hair back, and put on the green coat. Her suitcase waited by the door. Her phone sat on the kitchen table, dark and quiet for the last few minutes before the storm. At 6:32, Rosaria sent the first message. Come early. I forgot extra eggs. At 6:48, Bianca called. Valentina let it ring. At 7, Emilio sent a message asking her to pick up 3 trays from the Italian market because parking would be impossible later. At 7:12, Bianca called again. At 7:20, Rosaria wrote, "Why are you not answering? We need you." Valentina stood in the hallway of her apartment with her suitcase handle in one hand and her phone in the other. For a moment, her thumb hovered over the screen. The old self rose inside her, tired and obedient. The woman who would apologize for not being in 2 places. The daughter who would say she was on her way, while already calculating what she could cancel, what she could swallow, what part of her own life she could cut away neatly enough that no one noticed the blood. Then another message came in. It was not from her family. Dante had sent only one sentence. The plane will not wait for people who never asked. Valentina stared at it. Then she laughed. It was small at first, then fuller. Not happy exactly, but bright. A sound she had not expected to hear from herself on the morning she disappointed everyone. She locked her apartment door and went to the airport. The terminal was crowded with holiday travelers, families in matching scarves, children dragging glittery backpacks, couples carrying too many shopping bags, businessmen with tired eyes and expensive luggage. Overhead, announcements rolled through the air in calm voices. that made leaving sound ordinary. Valentina checked her bag, passed security, and bought herself a hot chocolate she did not need because she wanted to hold something warm while she watched the snow begin tapping against the tall windows. Her phone kept shaking. Bianca, Rosaria, Emilio, Bianca again. Messages filled the screen faster than she could read them. Where are you? The kids are asking for you. Mom is crying. This is not funny. Valentina, answer your sister. You need to come now. She waited until she reached the gate. Then she answered Bianca's call. Her sister's voice hit her before Valentina could say hello. Where are you? I have been calling for an hour. I have a hair appointment in 40 minutes. Mom is losing her mind, and Nico spilled juice on the couch because no one was watching him. Valentina looked out the airport window. A plane moved slowly through the gray morning, its wings shining with ice. I am at the airport, she said. Silence. Then Bianca laughed once. What airport? The airport where planes leave. Valentina, I am boarding soon. You are not serious. I am. The sound Bianca made next was not words, it was disbelief turning sharp. Are you insane? It is Christmas Eve. I know. You have responsibilities. Valentina breathed in. The hot chocolate warmed her palm. When did I agree to them? Another silence. This one was different. This one had no easy answer inside it. Bianca recovered first. You always help. Always helping is not the same as agreeing. Do not start with that therapy language. It is not therapy language. It is a full sentence. Bianca's voice rose. Mom planned everything around you. Yes, Valentina said. That is the problem. Give me the phone, Rosaria said somewhere in the background. There was a rustle, then her mother's voice came through, breathless and wounded. Valentina, enough. Come home. Everyone is depending on you. Valentina closed her eyes. For 1 second, she was a child again, standing in the kitchen while her mother cried because Valentina had said she was tired. For 1 second, guilt placed its old hand on the back of her neck. Then the gate agent announced pre-boarding. Valentina opened her eyes. No, she said. Rosaria went quiet. Valentina had said no before, but usually with explanations attached. No, I can't because work. No, I'm sorry. Maybe later. No, but I can still help after dinner. This no stood alone. It had no decorations. No apology. No little bridge back to obedience. Her mother's voice became cold. You are embarrassing this family. No, Valentina said. You embarrassed yourselves when you planned to put me in a laundry room and call it Christmas. Rosaria gasped. Emilio took the phone next. His voice had the heavy anger he used when he expected everyone to become smaller. Cancel the flight. Valentina looked down at her boarding pass. No. You listen to me. I am listening. Then come home. I am going to Prague. You will regret this. Maybe she would. Maybe tonight, in a strange hotel room across the ocean, guilt would crawl into bed beside her. Maybe Christmas morning would hurt. Maybe being free for the first time would feel so much like fear that she would almost mistake it for wrongdoing. But behind the fear was something else. Space. Valentina lifted her suitcase handle. I have to board, she said. Her father said her name like a warning. For once, she let the warning pass through her without becoming a command. Merry Christmas, she said. Then she ended the call, turned off her phone, and walked toward the gate before anyone could remind her who she used to be. For the first few minutes after Valentina stepped onto the plane, she did not feel brave. She felt lightheaded, as if she had walked out of her own life too quickly and some important part of her had been left behind near the gate. The flight attendant smiled and pointed her toward her seat. A man in the aisle struggled with a suitcase that was too large for the overhead bin. A little boy pressed his face to the window, and whispered that the wing looked like a sword. Everything around Valentina was ordinary. People were taking coats off, checking seat numbers, asking for help, complaining softly about delays. No one knew that she had just ruined the version of Christmas her family had built around her silence. No one knew that her phone, turned off inside her handbag, was probably filling with anger like a room filling with smoke. She reached her seat, placed her coat carefully over her lap, and looked out the window. The morning was grey and bright at the same time, the kind of winter light that made the whole world look unfinished. Snow moved across the glass in little restless lines. The airport trucks crawled around the plane like patient insects. Somewhere behind her, people were still boarding. Somewhere miles away, her mother was probably holding a dish towel in one hand and a phone in the other, telling everyone Valentina had lost her mind. Bianca was probably pacing through the living room in curlers, furious because no one had appeared to absorb the inconvenience she had created. Emilio was probably standing near the kitchen island with his jaw hard, waiting for obedience to return because, in his world, obedience usually did. Valentina placed her palm against the dark screen of her phone. She imagined turning it back on. She imagined the messages flooding in. Mom crying, Dad ordering, Bianca accusing, cousins asking questions they already half understood. For 1 weak second, her thumb moved toward the power button. Then she remembered Dante's message. The plane would not wait for people who never asked. So Valentina tucked the phone deeper into her bag and fastened her seatbelt. The flight pulled away from the gate 10 minutes later. As the plane rolled toward the runway, Valentina felt the first real tremor of panic. Not regret, panic. Regret would have sounded like, I should not have done this. Panic sounded like, what will happen now that I did? Her family had trained her to confuse peace with everyone else being satisfied. If Rosaria was happy, Christmas was peaceful. If Emilio was not angry, dinner was peaceful. If Bianca was relaxed, the whole house could breathe. But Valentina had never asked herself what peace felt like when no one else had been fed with pieces of her. The plane rose through the clouds. Her stomach dropped, then lifted. The city disappeared beneath a sheet of white. For a moment, there was nothing outside the window but light. No house, no group chat, no laundry room, no air mattress, no voices telling her she was useful enough to be needed, but not precious enough to be protected. Valentina exhaled slowly. Across the ocean, Christmas Eve unfolded without her. At first, her family did what people like them always did when a system failed. They looked for the missing part, not the broken design. Bianca tried calling Valentina 17 times before admitting to anyone that Valentina had actually boarded the flight. Rosaria told relatives there had been a misunderstanding. Emilio announced that Valentina was being dramatic and would come to her senses before dinner. But Valentina's absence was not a chair left empty at the table. It was a foundation stone removed from a wall everyone had leaned on for years without noticing. The first crack came before noon. Bianca's youngest son spilled juice on the rug because Bianca was upstairs trying to save her hair appointment, and Rosaria was in the kitchen yelling at a pot of sauce as if it had personally betrayed her. The older children discovered the wrapped presents in the den and tore open 3 gifts meant for Christmas morning. One of Emilio's cousins arrived early, with 2 toddlers, and asked cheerfully where Valentina had set up the craft table. Rosaria stared at her. The craft table? You said Valentina had activities planned for the children. I said she could put something together. Did she? Rosaria did not answer. She simply turned back toward the kitchen, where something was beginning to burn. By the time Bianca came downstairs in a coat that looked too delicate for weather and heels that clicked with offense, the living room looked as if a small storm had passed through it. Her youngest was crying because someone had taken his reindeer cup. Her oldest was chasing a cousin with a ribbon wand. Two toddlers had discovered the bowl of sugared almonds and were eating them from both fists, while Emilio shouted that somebody needed to do something. Bianca looked around and said the most honest thing she had said all morning. "I can't handle all of this." Rosaria turned on her so fast, the wooden spoon in her hand flicked sauce onto the counter. "Then maybe you should not have cancelled the sitter." Bianca's face changed. "You told me Valentina would help." "I told you she always helps." "That is the same thing." "No," Aunt Lucia said from the doorway. "Apparently it is not." Everyone turned. Lucia stood with her coat still on, holding a foil-covered tray, and looking at the room with the tired expression of someone watching a secret become visible. She glanced at the children, the spilled juice, the torn wrapping paper, Bianca's half-finished makeup, Rosaria's tight mouth, Emilio's anger, and the basement door at the end of the hall. "Where exactly was Valentina supposed to sleep?" she asked. Rosaria's eyes narrowed. "Why does that matter?" Lucia looked at the basement door. "Because I would like to know whether my niece was invited to Christmas or hired without pay." No one answered fast enough. That was when relatives began to notice. Not all at once. Family truths rarely arrive like thunder. They arrive like drafts under a door. A cousin heard Bianca snapping that Valentina should have warned them sooner. Another cousin asked, "Warned you that she was taking the trip she already told people about?" Someone else wanted to know why there had been no sitter. Emilio said it was too expensive. Bianca said she had found one but cancelled. Rosaria said the whole thing had been a misunderstanding. Lucia asked again who had misunderstood what, and why the misunderstanding had Valentina's name beside every unpleasant job. No one had a clean answer. At 2 in the afternoon, Bianca finally called an emergency holiday childcare service. Her voice became polite and high as soon as the agency answered, the voice she used with people whose judgment mattered. Yes, they needed care that evening. Yes, for several children. Yes, possibly overnight. Yes, Christmas Eve. Yes, last minute. No, they had not booked in advance. No, they did not have signed care forms prepared. No, they had not confirmed with all parents about pickup. Yes, there would be food allergies. Maybe. She would check. Then the agent gave her the price. Bianca went white. "That is robbery," she said. The agent must have said something calm, because Bianca's face flushed deeper. "No, I understand it is a holiday. I understand people deserve to be paid. But that much..." Lucia folded her arms. Rosaria looked away. Emilio took the phone and tried to use the voice he used on car dealers and contractors. He spoke slowly, heavily, with the authority of a man who believed every price was softer if he pressed it hard enough. The agent did not bend. Holiday rate, overnight rate, last-minute fee, transportation fee, additional child fee, minimum hours, deposit in advance. Emilio ended the call with a curse. "Valentina did this," Bianca said. Lucia's eyes sharpened. "No, Valentina removed herself. This is what was underneath." In Prague, Valentina did not learn any of this until evening. Her flight landed under a lavender winter sky. Marina was waiting near arrivals in a red hat and a coat dusted with snow, waving both arms as if Valentina had returned from war instead of escaped a family dinner. The moment Valentina saw her, something inside her loosened. "You came," Marina said, pulling her into a hug. "I came. I was afraid they would stop you." Valentina closed her eyes against her friend's shoulder. "So was I." Marina hugged her harder and did not ask questions in the airport. That was one of the things Valentina loved about her. Marina knew when a person needed the story and when she needed food first. They took a taxi through streets that looked like they belonged inside a snow globe someone had forgotten to shake gently. Prague glowed in layers. Lamps spilled gold onto wet stone. Church towers rose dark against the evening, shops were trimmed with garland, and people moved through the cold with scarves pulled high around their faces. Everything felt old and unreal. Valentina pressed her forehead near the window and watched the city pass by, as if it might vanish if she blinked too long. The hotel room was small, warm, and perfect. 2 narrow beds, heavy curtains, a little desk, a window overlooking a street where snow gathered on parked cars. No laundry machines, no air mattress, no children sleeping outside the door because their parents wanted a night out. Valentina set her suitcase down and stood still. Marina removed her hat. "You okay?" Valentina smiled, but her eyes burned. "I think I'm waiting for someone to tell me where they need me." Marina's face softened. "Tonight, I need you to put on boots. Then I need you to drink something hot and judge ornaments with me." "That sounds serious." "It is. I have strong opinions about wooden angels." Valentina laughed, and this time it did not feel sharp. It felt rusty, like a sound being used again after years in storage. They walked to the Christmas market after dark. The square was alive with light. Stalls sold pastries, candles, carved toys, warm wine, roasted nuts, embroidered cloth, little glass animals, stars made of straw, and ornaments painted with tiny winter scenes. Music moved through the air from somewhere near the center, soft and bright. The scent of cinnamon, chocolate, smoke, and snow seemed to wrap around Valentina's shoulders. She bought hot chocolate so thick it left a line of sweetness on her lip. She bought a small painted bird for her apartment. She touched soft wool scarves and did not apologize for taking time. She let Marina photograph her under a string of lights, even though her first instinct was to step behind someone thinner. When Marina showed her the picture, Valentina almost looked away. Then she looked again. The green coat was beautiful. Her cheeks were pink from the cold. Her dark hair had loosened around her face. She looked full, not in the way people had used that word against her, but in the way winter trees looked full when covered in snow. Present, real, not waiting to be edited. "Send it to me," she said. Marina smiled. "Already did." Back at the hotel, Valentina turned on her phone. It took almost a full minute for the messages to arrive. The screen shook in her hand. Bianca had called 29 times. Her mother 13. Her father 6. There were dozens of family chat messages, then deleted messages, then screenshots reposted by Lucia. Valentina sat on the edge of the bed, while Marina quietly changed into pajamas and pretended not to watch too closely. At first, the messages were exactly what she expected. "You need to answer. You are being selfish. Your mother is sick over this. The children are crying. How could you leave us like this?" Then the tone began to shift. Lucia had written, "Did anyone actually ask Valentina to watch the children?" A cousin named Renata had replied, "I assumed she agreed." Lucia had sent, "Based on what?" Then Bianca had deleted several messages. Then Lucia had posted screenshots from earlier in the month. Ones Valentina had not even known Lucia saved. Rosaria saying Valentina could manage the kids because she had no little ones of her own. Emilio saying it made no sense to pay help when Valentina was available. Bianca saying she would cancel the sitter because Valentina was covered. Rosaria saying the laundry room would be fine because Valentina never complained. The chat after that became different, shorter, uneasier. Renata wrote, "Wait, she was supposed to sleep in the laundry room?" Another cousin wrote, "Was she being paid?" Bianca wrote, "It was family help, not a job." Lucia answered, "Then why was every unwanted job assigned to one person who was not asked?" Valentina sat there, staring at the screen. She had expected rage. She had expected guilt. She had not expected witnesses. A voicemail from Rosaria waited near the bottom. Valentina played it on speaker before she could lose courage. Her mother's voice filled the little hotel room. "Valentina, you are making this very difficult. I need you here early. Wear something nice for dinner because people will be taking pictures, but bring comfortable clothes to change into once you are on child duty. Do not make a face. This is what family does. Also, if you can bring extra ribbon, do that. And do not mention Prague to your father tonight. He is already irritated. The recording ended. Marina sat down slowly on the other bed. Valentina's face felt strangely calm. That is bad, Marina said. Yes. Are you going to send it? Valentina looked at the voicemail. Her thumb hovered over the forward button. For years, she had protected her family from the sound of themselves. She had translated their cruelty into stress, their insults into concern, their demands into tradition. She had edited them in her own mind so she could keep loving them without facing what love had cost her. But now, in a warm room in Prague, wearing socks she had bought for herself, she felt something quiet and steady rise inside her. Not revenge, clarity. She forwarded the voicemail to the family chat. Then she wrote, "This is what I was asked to cancel my trip for, except no one asked." She set the phone down. For 5 full minutes, no one replied. When the messages returned, they did not come from her mother, father, or Bianca. They came from everyone else. Renata wrote, "I'm sorry, I did not know." Another cousin wrote, "This is not okay." Lucia wrote, "Thank you for showing the truth." One of Bianca's sisters-in-law wrote, "We are leaving after dinner. I am not comfortable leaving the children in this mess." Then Bianca finally replied, "You embarrassed Mom in front of everyone." Valentina stared at the sentence. She waited for guilt to rise. It did, faintly, like an old song playing in another room. Then she typed, "Mom embarrassed herself. I only stopped hiding it." She sent it. At Bellarosa Holdings, Dante received Emilio Moretti's call just after 7 in the evening. He could have let reception handle it. He could have ignored it. He could have had security note the number and block it. But when his assistant told him the caller claimed to be Valentina's father and was demanding to know who approved her leave, Dante removed his glasses, closed the file in front of him, and picked up the phone himself. Dante Bellarosa. There was a brief silence. Emilio had expected a secretary, maybe a junior manager, someone soft enough to intimidate. He had not expected the man whose name made restaurants find tables that did not exist. "This is Emilio Moretti," he said, his voice less certain now. "I am Valentina's father. I know who you are." "My daughter left the country during a family emergency." "No," Dante said. "Your daughter left the country on approved vacation. You do not understand. This is a private family matter. Then you made a strange decision calling her workplace." Emilio breathed heavily into the line. "She works for you. She has responsibilities. She completed them. She abandoned her family. She refused unpaid labor she did not accept." Another silence. Dante looked toward the city beyond his office window. Snow had begun falling there too, softening the lights of the buildings below. Emilio's voice lowered. "I don't appreciate you getting involved. I am involved only because you called my office. She is my daughter. She is also an adult. Her private time is not company property, and it is not yours. You have no right to speak to me that way." Dante's voice stayed calm. That was what made it dangerous. "Mr. Moretti, I am going to be very clear. Valentina is on leave. Do not call this office again to harass her, shame her, or look for someone who will help you control her. If you have something kind to say, use her personal number and hope she chooses to answer. If you have something unkind to say, write it down and read it to yourself until you understand why she left." Emilio said nothing. Dante let the silence stretch. Then he added, "And if you ever suggest that her employment gives you access to her through me, I will remember it." The call ended. Dante placed the phone down gently. Across the ocean, Valentina knew nothing about that conversation until Dante sent her a message an hour later. Your father called the office. It has been handled. Enjoy Prague. Valentina stared at the message while standing beside a bridge dusted in snow. The river below was dark and shining. Castle lights glowed in the distance like something from a storybook. Marina was a few steps away buying roasted chestnuts from a vendor. Valentina typed, "I'm sorry he bothered you." Dante replied almost immediately, "You are not responsible for another man's poor judgment." She smiled despite herself. Then another message appeared. "Do not spend Christmas apologizing." Valentina looked up at the snow falling over the river. For the first time that day, she wondered what Dante was doing for Christmas. She imagined him alone in his office, surrounded by files and quiet power, speaking to her father in the same controlled voice he used when deciding the fate of men who lied about money. The thought should have felt frightening. Instead, it felt like standing near a wall strong enough not to lean on her. She typed, "Merry Christmas, Mr. Bellarosa." There was a pause. Then, "Merry Christmas, Valentina." She placed the phone in her pocket and walked back toward Marina. Christmas in Prague did not heal her life. It did something gentler and more important. It gave her one day that was not organized around being useful. On Christmas morning, she woke without an alarm. No child was crying outside the door. No one was calling for help from the kitchen. No one had placed a schedule on the counter with her name beside the work other people did not want. Snow moved past the window in slow flakes. Marina was still asleep, one arm thrown over her face. Valentina lay still under the thick hotel blanket and listened to the quiet. At first, the quiet felt wrong. Then it felt like a gift. They spent the day walking. They visited a cathedral where the ceiling rose so high Valentina felt small, in a way that did not humiliate her. Small like a person under stars. Small like a person who did not have to carry the whole room to deserve being in it. They crossed stone streets shining with melted snow. They shared pastries that left sugar on their gloves. They bought tiny gifts from market stalls. Valentina bought herself earrings shaped like little gold leaves, then almost put them back because they were not practical. Marina watched her. "Buy the earrings. I don't need them." "Great. Then they are perfect." So Valentina bought them. That evening, she wore the earrings to dinner. They were not expensive. They did not change her face. But every time they brushed her neck, she remembered that wanting something small and pretty was allowed to be enough. Back home, Christmas had become a story people were already telling in different versions. Rosaria's version was that Valentina had humiliated her on purpose. Emilio's version was that modern daughters had no respect. Bianca's version was that Valentina had been waiting for a chance to punish them. But the relatives had seen too much. The screenshots were too clear. The voicemail was too plain. The collapsed party made denial harder. The adults-only event at the private club did not happen the way Rosaria had imagined. Emilio arrived late because the emergency sitter required forms, payment, and instructions no one had prepared. Bianca and Marco argued in the driveway because he had only just learned she cancelled the original sitter to save money for her salon appointment and a new dress. Rosaria cried in the upstairs bathroom because the house was messy and people had seen her lose control. By the time they reached the club, half the relatives had already heard what happened. No one said much at first. That made it worse. Perfect families often survive gossip. They do not survive silence from people who now know where to look. Emilio lost the deposit after arguing with a manager over the late arrival. Bianca's dress caught on the edge of a chair and tore near the hem. Rosaria's cousin made one dry comment about how Christmas was easier when hidden labor stayed hidden, and Rosaria did not speak to her for the rest of the night. None of it was dramatic enough to be tragedy. That made it more revealing. The holiday did not collapse because Valentina was cruel. It collapsed because too many adults had mistaken her sacrifice for structure. Valentina returned 3 days after Christmas. The city looked colder when she came back, but she did not. She wore the green coat through the airport. The gold leaf earrings brushed her neck. In her suitcase were small gifts for herself, for Marina's children, and one painted wooden bird she had bought for Dante without knowing why. She told herself it was professional, a holiday token, a thank you for approving leave, even though he had done more than that. He had given her the one instruction no one else had dared to give: choose your own life, and let the people who built theirs on your obedience face the weather. Her family demanded a meeting the day after she returned. Bianca sent the message first. We need to talk. Mom and Dad expect you at the house at 6. Valentina looked at the word expect for a long time. Then she wrote, I am available at 6 for 1 hour. I will leave if I am insulted. Bianca replied with 3 furious paragraphs. Valentina did not answer. At 5:45, she printed the screenshots. She printed the deleted schedule Lucia had recovered. She printed the voicemail transcript. She made a list of every duty assigned to her without consent. She placed the papers in a neat folder and drove to the Moretti house. The blinking angel was still on the entry table. One wing had stopped lighting up. Rosaria opened the door with swollen eyes and a stiff mouth. You look pleased with yourself. Valentina felt the old sting, but it did not enter as deeply. Hello, Mom. Inside, the living room had been cleaned too carefully. The couch cushions were arranged. The tree lights glowed. Someone had vacuumed the rug where the juice had spilled, but the stain remained faintly visible if you knew where to look. Emilio stood near the fireplace. Bianca sat on the sofa with her arms folded. Marco, her husband, stood near the window looking uncomfortable. Aunt Lucia was there too, sitting in the armchair with a cup of coffee, as if she had no intention of being removed from the room. Why is she here? Bianca asked. Lucia smiled without warmth. Because I was invited by the truth. Rosaria closed her eyes. Please, not now. Valentina placed the folder on the coffee table. Emilio looked at it. What is that? Everything you assigned me for Christmas. Bianca scoffed. Are you serious? Yes. Valentina opened the folder. The papers inside were clean, organized, and impossible to soften. There were the messages where Bianca cancelled the sitter, the schedule with Valentina's name beside dishes, breakfast, children, cleanup, overnight duty. The voicemail transcript telling her to dress nicely for pictures, then change when she was on child duty. There was a separate page listing every task, the estimated hours, and whether anyone had asked her directly. The last column said no, all the way down. Rosaria's face tightened. This is cruel. Valentina looked at her mother. No, this is clear. You made me look like a monster. I made the plan visible. You could have called me. You could have called me before assigning me work. Emilio's voice cut through the room. Enough. You embarrassed this family. Valentina turned to him. You were embarrassed because people saw what you expected from me. You are my daughter. I know. You should want to help. I do want to help sometimes. I do not want to be used. Bianca let out a bitter laugh. Listen to you. A few days in Europe, and now you think you are better than everyone. Valentina looked at her sister for a long moment. Bianca was beautiful in the way people always praised openly. Slim, polished, easy to photograph. Growing up, she had moved through rooms as if they were made to welcome her. Valentina had spent years loving her anyway, even when Bianca treated that love like a backup plan. I do not think I am better than you, Valentina said. I think my time is not worth less than yours. Bianca's eyes flashed. I have children. Yes. You don't understand what that is like. No, I don't. But I understand that having children does not turn your sister into free childcare. Marco shifted near the window. Bianca looked at him sharply. Do not start. He rubbed a hand over his mouth. She's not wrong. The room went still. Bianca stared at him. Excuse me? Marco looked miserable, but he did not take it back. You cancelled the sitter without asking her. I thought Valentina agreed. If I had known, he looked at Valentina. I'm sorry. I should have checked. The apology was simple. Awkward. Late. But it was the first one. Valentina nodded once. Thank you. Rosaria began crying then. Not loudly. Not theatrically. Quiet tears, which somehow made everyone more uncomfortable. I just wanted a nice Christmas, she said. Valentina's chest ached. There was the mother she loved. There was the woman who made sauce, remembered birthdays, saved ribbons from gifts because waste upset her, and used guilt like a second language. Both were real. That was the painful part. I know, Valentina said gently. But your nice Christmas required me to disappear into the basement until someone needed me. Rosaria covered her mouth. Emilio looked away. Valentina closed the folder. Here are my boundaries. You may invite me to family events, but you may not assign me work. You may ask for help, but I am allowed to say no. You may not insult my body, my singleness, my apartment, my choices, or the life I build for myself. If childcare is needed, you hire childcare. If food is needed, everyone contributes or pays someone. If I visit, I am a guest unless I agree otherwise. Bianca muttered, so formal. Valentina turned to her. Yes, because informal has meant everyone assumes I will absorb the cost. Emilio's face hardened. And if we refuse these little rules? Valentina picked up her folder. Then I leave. You would walk away from your family? Valentina looked at him, and for the first time, she did not feel like a little girl standing before his disappointment. I already did, and I came back only because I wanted to give you a chance to know why. No one spoke. The power in the room changed then. Not loudly, not cleanly, but everyone felt it. Valentina had always been the safe person to disappoint because she stayed. She stayed through jokes, through guilt, through bad rooms and unpaid work, and little humiliations polished until they looked like tradition. Now she had proven she could leave, not threaten to leave, not cry and come back after being comforted, leave, board a plane, turn off her phone, let Christmas happen without her. That fact sat in the room like a new piece of furniture everyone had to walk around. Lucia took a sip of coffee. Future holidays will need planning. Rosaria wiped her face. I don't want to discuss next year. Of course you don't, Lucia said, but we are discussing it anyway, because I am not watching this happen again. Bianca looked furious. Emilio looked offended. Rosaria looked tired. Marco looked relieved. It was not healing. Not yet. It was too uncomfortable to be healing. But it was the first honest conversation the family had had about Valentina in years. When Valentina stood to leave at the end of the hour, her mother followed her to the door. For a moment, Rosaria said nothing. The hallway light flickered above them. The broken-winged angel blinked on the table. Then Rosaria whispered, "Were you really going to Prague all along?" Valentina's heart twisted. Yes. And you didn't tell me because you knew I would make you feel guilty. Valentina looked at her mother carefully. Yes. Rosaria flinched. It would have been easier to soften it. To say, not exactly. To say I was just busy. To protect her mother from the truth one more time. But Valentina had spent Christmas learning that softness without honesty only made a prettier cage. Rosaria touched the edge of the door. I don't know how to do this differently. Valentina's voice was quiet. Then learn before you lose more than one Christmas. She kissed her mother's cheek, not because everything was forgiven, but because love did not have to mean surrender. Then she left. The next morning, Valentina returned to work. Bellarosa Holdings was quieter than usual. The holiday decorations in the lobby had already begun to look tired, as if even Gold Ribbon knew when the season was ending. Valentina walked through security in her green coat and gold earrings, holding the small gift bag with the painted bird inside. Dante's office door was open. He looked up when she entered. For 1 second, neither of them spoke. Then his eyes moved over her face, not in a way that measured her beauty or searched for weakness, but in the way he studied balance sheets, legal contracts, and men who claimed innocence too quickly. He was reading what had changed. "You came back," he said. "I work here." "That is not what I meant." Valentina placed the gift bag on his desk. "For you." Dante looked at it, as if no one had ever handed him something small without an agenda. He removed the tissue paper and took out the wooden bird. It was painted blue and gold, with tiny white dots along its wings like snow. "It is from the market," Valentina said. "I thought your office could use one thing that is not black, grey, or threatening." His mouth moved slightly. "My office is not threatening. Your paperweight looks like it could testify in court. That paperweight was a gift from a judge. That proves my point." For one rare moment, Dante Bellarosa smiled. It was brief, quiet, almost private, but Valentina saw it, and something warm moved through her before she could stop it. He set the bird carefully on the shelf beside a row of leather-bound books. It looked strange there, bright and small and stubborn. Valentina liked it. "How was the meeting?" he asked. "Awful." "Good." She blinked. "Good." Honest things often feel awful at first. Valentina sat in the chair across from him without being asked. 3 years ago, she would have waited. Today, she sat because she was tired, and because the chair was there. My father was angry. My sister tried to make it about her. My mother cried. My aunt helped. Marco apologized. No one became a better person in one conversation. That would have been suspicious. Valentina smiled faintly. But they heard me. Dante's gaze held hers. "And you? What about me? Did you hear yourself?" The question entered softly, but it reached deep. Valentina looked toward the shelf where the painted bird now stood. She thought about the airport, the plane, the market lights, the green coat, her mother at the door, the folder on the coffee table, the first no that had stood by itself. "Yes," she said. "I think I did." Dante leaned back. "Then you did well. Because I followed your advice?" "No." His voice was low. "Because you stopped treating your own life like something that required approval from the people most comfortable using it." Valentina looked down at her hands. They were not shaking. She wondered how many years she had mistaken trembling for proof that she was wrong, when maybe it had only meant she was doing something new. "Power is strange," Dante said. She looked up. "Most people think it is force, money, fear, the ability to make someone move when they do not want to." His eyes went briefly to the city beyond the window. "Sometimes it is only the moment you stop moving because someone else expects you to." Valentina breathed out slowly. Outside, snow began falling again, lighter than before. It touched the glass and vanished. The family did not change overnight. Bianca did not speak to Valentina for 3 weeks, except to send short, cold messages about birthdays and borrowed serving plates. Rosaria still sighed too loudly when Valentina said she was busy. Emilio did not apologize, not with words, but he stopped calling her during work hours and stopped telling relatives she would handle things before asking her first. It was not perfect. It was not pretty. But the old system had cracked, and everyone had heard it. The next family dinner was smaller. No holiday, no decorations, just Sunday sauce, bread, and a tense politeness that sat beside everyone like an extra guest. When Rosaria asked Valentina to bring dessert, Valentina said yes because she wanted to. When Bianca asked if Valentina could watch the children for 10 minutes while she took a call, Valentina asked, "Is this a request?" Bianca's face turned red, but she said yes. Valentina watched them for 10 minutes. Then she handed them back. No one died. No one collapsed. The world did not end because Valentina counted her own time. By February, Lucia had started a shared holiday planning document for the whole family, with columns for cooking, cleaning, childcare, cost, and names of people who had actually agreed. Bianca complained that it felt cold. Lucia replied that warm feelings had done a poor job of washing dishes fairly. Marco quietly added the name of a sitter and split the cost with 2 cousins. Rosaria did not like it, but she used the document. Emilio pretended not to notice and then asked where he should send his portion. Valentina watched it all from a distance that felt strange at first, then peaceful. At work, Dante remained Dante, cold in meetings, exact with numbers, dangerous to men who lied. But with Valentina, there was now a quiet understanding between them that did not need to be named. He did not ask about every family update. He did not press. He did not turn her independence into another thing he owned by having encouraged it. Sometimes, when a client tried to waste her time, Dante's eyes would shift to her, and he would wait for her to handle it. And she did. In March, during a late evening review, Valentina found an error in a contract that would have cost one of Dante's shipping companies nearly $500,000. She placed the page in front of him and tapped the clause. They assumed we would not read the attachment. Dante looked at the page, then at her. A dangerous assumption. Valentina smiled. Those seemed to be going around. His eyes warmed almost invisibly. The painted bird remained on his shelf. Sometimes men came into the office and glanced at it, confused by the softness of it in such a severe room. Dante never explained. Valentina never did either. The next December, Rosaria called Valentina 3 weeks before Christmas. Valentina answered from her kitchen, where oranges sat in a bowl and the green coat hung by the door. Her mother cleared her throat. "We are planning Christmas Eve." Valentina waited. Rosaria continued, carefully, as if speaking a language she had not yet mastered. "Would you like to come as a guest?" Valentina leaned against the counter. "As a guest?" she asked. "Yes. And if you need help, we will ask. And if I say no?" There was a pause. Not a happy pause. Not an easy one. But then Rosaria said, "Then we will figure something else out." Valentina closed her eyes. It was not a perfect apology. It was not the scene some softer part of her had once wanted, with tears and understanding and everyone suddenly seeing every wound they had made. Life rarely repaired itself that neatly. But it was a door left open without anyone dragging her through it. "I'll come for dinner," Valentina said. "I can bring dessert." Rosaria's breath shook once. That would be nice. After the call, Valentina stood in her quiet apartment for a long time. Then she took the painted bird's twin from her windowsill, the one she had bought for herself in Prague, and turned it toward the light. Its little gold wings caught the winter sun. That Christmas, Valentina went to dinner in the green coat. She arrived at 6 because she had agreed to 6, not because anyone had demanded earlier. Bianca's children ran to hug her, and she hugged them back because she loved them, not because she belonged to their needs. The table was loud. The sauce was good. The house still smelled like pine candles and garlic and stress, but something had shifted beneath it. When Rosaria asked if she could help carry plates, Valentina said yes. When Bianca asked if she could keep the children busy during dessert, Valentina said, "No, I'm eating dessert." Bianca opened her mouth, then closed it. Lucia laughed into her wine. And Valentina ate her dessert slowly, without guilt. Later that night, after she returned home, she found a message from Dante. "Merry Christmas, Valentina." She smiled at the screen. Then another message arrived. "The bird looks smug tonight." Valentina laughed alone in her apartment, warm and real and unafraid of taking up space. She typed back, "Maybe it learned from me." For a while, she stood by the window and watched snow fall over the city. Somewhere, her family was still learning. Somewhere, Dante Bellarosa's dark office held one small painted bird that did not belong there and somehow did. Somewhere inside Valentina, an old ache still existed, but it no longer ruled the whole room. Her Christmas had not been saved by revenge. It had not been saved by a powerful man. It had not even been saved by Prague, though she would always remember the lights, the snow, the hot chocolate, and the coat that made her feel visible instead of wrong. Her Christmas had been saved the moment she stopped asking people who benefited from her silence whether she was allowed to speak. For years, her family had treated her kindness like an open account they could draw from whenever they wished. They had mistaken her loneliness for availability, her softness for weakness, her body for a reason she should accept less, and her love for a contract she had signed without reading. But Valentina had finally read the terms. She had finally understood the cost. And once she did, she chose not to pay it anymore. That was the gift she kept long after the markets closed, the snow melted, and the angry messages stopped coming. Not a trip, not a coat, not even an apology. The gift was this: Valentina Moretti no longer belonged to the people who only valued her when she made their lives easier. She belonged to herself.